The Goat House is back, and the NFL head coaching searches are heating up. They're wildly entertaining, and that's because these are some of the biggest NFL head coaching jobs in the history of NFL offseason. I'm here discussing a lot more than just predictions. Let's take a look. Let's start with the New England Patriots, a team that it's a little easier to narrow down the options for, to make a prediction for compared to the other teams. And the sense around the league is this is a top-tier coaching job, maybe the best one from everything we're hearing right now. This is maybe the most appealing one. In my opinion, there's another team that we'll talk about. We're going to talk about all the openings. Another team that's in the conversation with the Patriots. That is my opinion, but based on what it sounds like the league thinks, the coaches think, this is that top job. And it makes sense for several reasons. Most cap space, loads of cap space. They can go to work, add some big-time players. The coach can obviously will have a say in that. Pretty good future situation as well. Very high draft pick, Drake May. Young, high upside quarterback, and just the talk around the league from coaches, executives, they are blown away by Drake May. They are very high on him. They feel kind of like what we feel. He's ahead of schedule, and no surprise. This is a guy we're very high on. A lot of upside here. And they don't really have any red flags. There's no weakness to this job. Of course, they have holes. You got to build a roster, but they have the resources to be able to do that. And some coaches like building it up their way, so it makes a lot of sense here. Some of the other coaching jobs, they have these red flags or major red flags. Ownership. We'll talk about that throughout the video, different things. Patriots really don't have that. So who do they want? They want Mike Vrabel or they want Ben Johnson. The whole way it felt like Mike Vrabel, right? But now Ben Johnson, blown away with them. They're blown away with him after the interview, and they're a very appealing spot. They think Ben Johnson likes them. So that makes an interesting decision. I think a good chunk of that people in that organization just want Mike Vrabel because former Patriot, proven really good head coach, did a really good job at the Tennessee Titans. They were much better with him, obviously, proven in the regular season. You like that he's a leader of men. But Ben Johnson, there's got to be some people in that organization that think like that's the guy that can take Drake May to that elite status. That's the guy that can really elevate us in this offense. He's that new school type coach. So that's a tough decision there. I'm going to predict Mike Vrabel. We're going to stick with that. I think a lot of you out there are probably predicting the same thing. It's not too bold, anything like that. But if I had another guess, it'd be Ben Johnson. They might just go, hey, if he wants to come here, we might not be able to pass on that opportunity because he's done such a good job with the Detroit Lions. Now it's a different situation with us. That's what teams are going to have to decide here with Ben Johnson, since it's he wasn't a head coach and it was such a perfect situation. Detroit is it going to be a lot tougher with our team? That's what teams are going to be saying here. But we'll predict Mike Vrabel. Watch out for Ben Johnson. That is picking up some steam there. Let's talk about the Raiders now. Believe it or not, they're actually viewed around the league as one of the very top coaching jobs right now out of the 6 available. And I think from fans and social media, the common take of their talk is maybe mid-tier out of the coaching jobs, but it's actually a much better landing spot than what you think, what I originally thought as well, just based on the talk here. And this job's starting to pick up some steam lately as well. And we'll tell you why. I mean, they could pay. They're willing to pay a lot of money here to the top candidate. They're number 2 in cap space as well for adding those players for the future, right behind the Patriots. If you look at future cap combining this year, next year, the year after that, I'd say they have the best situation, even better than the Patriots if you combine all those years, and things obviously could change. A very high draft pick, Tom Brady, part owner. So at first glance, it's like, does that say a lot? Is that a big thing? But it's starting to pick up more and more. That's huge. That Tom Brady has a lot of pull around there. It's a very appealing spot because of that for coaches. They don't have any big red flags. And people will question Mark Davis, the owner. People will say, well, they need a quarterback. Yeah, if you evaluate the roster, then maybe there's a red flag there. But some coaches like to pick their quarterback. Other than that, they have some ball players led by Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins on this roster. The offensive line isn't a big problem right now. You don't have to really build that up. They don't really have any major negatives where it's like, oh, that's not a good spot because of that, even though there's good things. They don't really have that compared to some of the other teams we're going to talk about. Who I think they really want, I think Ben Johnson can be at the top. I think he's at the top of most teams, not all teams. We'll talk about that. But that's who I think they want. It sounds like things are really good after the interview, and there's a mutual interest, I should say. Ben Johnson definitely could pick somewhere else. Brady's trying to sway him. again, it's becoming more and more of an appealing landing spot than we all thought. And they also like Mike Vrabel. It's just chances are, Brady there, they probably like him. But chances are he's going to the Patriots. We talk about that. Watch out for Liam Cohen of the Buccaneers offense coordinator. Obviously, a really good offensive mind. That's a guy that they really like. Todd Monken is one to watch. That's maybe a little bit more of a wild card compared to the rest because the other ones are very obvious. And Pete Carroll, when making this video, I'm like, this is more of a wild card. People are going to be surprised about that. And actually, right before we're going to record this, Adam Schefter's coming out and Rappaport saying Carroll is going to get an interview. So I think I was on the right track with that one. Prediction, I'm going to go with Ben Johnson right now, which when they first wanted to interview him, everyone's like, that's probably one of the last places he's going to go. So this ends up being a little bit of a surprise. I'm 50-50 right there with Ben Johnson, Pete Carroll. So that's my prediction right now, where it's going to be Ben Johnson or Pete Carroll. Right when the job is open, I actually thought of Cohen. I thought Liam Cohen probably end up being my prediction, but right now it looks like Ben Johnson because they can pay. Brady's there, and there's a lot of positives. No major red flags. He can pick his quarterback. And then Pete Carroll, they could be looking for a good leader, a guy. That's the thing with the Raiders. Maybe they're done messing around with them. Maybe this guy could be a head coach. Maybe that guy could be our leader. Maybe he can do it. Go get a guy that's kind of proven. The flaw with him, it didn't really end that great with Seattle. It was awful, and he's definitely on the older side. So how much, is he washed up as a coach? That's kind of what's going to be discussed. I like Pete Carroll. I think there are better hires here, but again, I think that it could be a pretty good fit. It makes a lot of sense. So Ben Johnson, Pete Carroll. A day ago, we said probably not Ben Johnson. Right now, it's really picking up steam. They can throw that cash at him, and that's if the Patriots. I think the Patriots you'd probably choose first, but they might go at Vrabel. So becoming more of an interesting opening here in Vegas. Let's talk about the Jags. I love the Jags landing spot. If I'm a coach and I'm looking at everything, I love the Jags landing spot based on the talk, right? It's a little quiet with the Jags. It's sneaky quiet. Like everyone's saying, well, the Patriots. I mean, it's obviously super appealing. If Ben Johnson like the Patriots, the Raiders are more appealing than you think. There's a lot of hype there, a lot of talk there right now. It's a little quiet with the Jags, and I think it's a sneaky spot. Trevor Lawrence, the fans' views on Trevor Lawrence, I'll tell you what, a lot different than the league's views. This guy was a first pick for a reason. He's still young, has some experience on top of that. He has so much upside. He is that prototypical quarterback with the traits, with the talent that you look for. The best coaches are going to think, I want to work with that guy. I know he has it in him. I can fix him. Look at what Ben Johnson did with Goff. I think Lawrence has a lot more upside than that. So it's just about staying healthy with him. And I know it's an expensive contract, but you're locked in. You don't have to worry about it. So I know fans kind of rip Trevor Lawrence. Yes, he needs to play better, so maybe he deserves it a little bit. But he's way more appealing to coaches, to the league than anyone thinks out there. Insane draft capital. They have so many picks this year and next year. If you combine that, they have almost 20 picks the next 2 years. They have loads of picks this year, 10, I believe. Really, really good draft capital. They have talent on the roster, and that'll kind of get me to, we'll circle back. AFC South, very winnable division. The Texans were a little underwhelming this year. They're the best in the division. Titans are rebuilding. The Colts, they're talking about they're not that close. I mean, it's not the greatest team in the world, but they're pretty sneaky. They're decent. It's a very winnable division, so a coach wants to go there, hey, I can compete right away. GM and ownership is the question, and I don't think it's as much of a question as people say, but it is a question. Some coaches want to have a GM that they trust, they like. Maybe they want to pick their GM, or they want to be 50-50 with them, or maybe they want to have the coach wants to basically be the GM, like Belichick role he had. So maybe some coaches won't like it because of that, but I'll tell you what, Trent Baalke doesn't get the best, rap, I guess, around there, or, with people as well. Understandable, but at the end of the day, the Jaguars felt like they put talent on the field. They felt like Baalke put talent on the field. Trevor Lawrence, they've drafted offensive linemen. They have weapons. They drafted Brian Thomas Jr. They brought in a good player like Christian Kirk. They have Evan Ingram. They have multiple running backs. Defense, they had a first overall pick in Walker. Maybe he wasn't worth the first overall pick. He's very talented. Josh Allen's a star pass rusher. They brought in Armstead. They have good young linebackers. They have a star corner in Tyson Campbell. They have talent. And that kind of circles back. That's appealing. So the GM, even though he's missed on some picks and done some questionable things, based things too much off traits sometimes, he's put some talent on the field, and they were just undercoached, basically. And maybe they didn't find the right fit with the coach. So I think that is overblown on how much of a negative that is with the Jags. That's my opinion. More of the talk around the league right now is not really what fans and social media are saying totally different things. But the talk, reports, everything we're hearing, kind of Patriots, top, maybe Raiders, but this is a sneaky landing spot. I think they want Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen. It's kind of up in the air. This is early. We can revisit this stuff. It's kind of up in the air who they really, really want. Feels like a lot of these teams want Ben Johnson. I will say, what if there is a chance? What if they like Liam Cohen better than Ben Johnson because he is more of that quarterback guru? He played the position. He coached specifically the position. He coached offense. He was with Matt Stafford and the Rams. He coached Will Levis at Kentucky when he looked like a top pick, and then all of a sudden when he was gone, he turned into a second-round pick, and now he's struggling. He's doing really good things with Baker. It just gives them opportunities with the playbook and the play calling to make big time plays. It just seems more like a Trevor Lawrence type of coach. So you could actually argue that this is a team where Ben Johnson may not be the number one. He may very well be. He's number one or number two option. I'd watch out for Liam Cohen. It's just using my knowledge, I guess, that makes a lot of sense. And they also like Joe Brady's name has popped up a bit. Another potential quarterback whisperer for Trevor Lawrence. Todd Monken. What he did at Georgia, what he's doing with the Ravens, what he's doing with Lamar Jackson. Best year ever for him, possibly the last couple of years. And that looks pretty good for Trevor Lawrence there. I think it'd be an appealing spot for Monken. And Spagnuolo, who's one of the best defensive game planners in football. That gives you a pretty good leader that knows championship football. I'd say more so they also like Monken and Brady. But my prediction is going to be Liam Cohen. My next guest can be Ben Johnson. I think they land one of those guys. I think if I'm Ben Johnson, I think this is If I'm Ben Johnson, they want me. That's the place I'm picking. I guess money. I don't know the money amount. How important that is. It's probably the place I'm picking. It's between, for my opinion, it's the Jags and the Patriots. All right, but it sounds like what we're hearing, and it could be again the Jags kind of sneaky. I think all of a sudden we're gonna get to a day where it's like all the reports coming out that the Jags' job is highly thought of. But they very well, like I said, could want Cohen over Ben Johnson, more of the QB whisperer. Just seems like a really, really good fit for Trevor Lawrence. Monken, kind of the same thing. How much do you want to run Trevor Lawrence, though? You don't want to run him like, they did design runs with Lamar Jackson because he has the durability concerns lately. But I'm watching for Cohen and Ben Johnson. Of course, it definitely could be. It's early, and we still need to hear more about the Jags and who other teams are going to decide to take. So there could be multiple guys on this list that end up popping up. We keep you guys updated on Twitter/X, and we can make more videos if we have any more updates. With the GM job or the coach job of the Jags, very sneaky good. Now let's talk about the team that is the toughest to predict right now. That is the Chicago Bears. It certainly does not help that they have a very, very long list of interviews, even some random guys in there that we didn't expect, some guys that make a lot of sense as well. Yeah, mixed feelings on how good this coaching job is. There's some people that think it's really bad. There's some people that think it's really good. I think social media talk is a little high on it, but just based on the sense that we're hearing, it's kind of in the middle because there are some big positives, but there are some really big negatives here. And it's going to depend on the coach's thoughts on the negatives and the coach's thoughts on Caleb Williams. Like if they love Caleb Williams, they love his upside, they want to work with him. Of course, it's very high. It's going to be very high. That's why we're saying it's mixed. But then you kind of, it's a guy you got to shake some bad habits with. You really have to develop. You have to work with. And there's some other negatives like we talked about. They might be lower on this job. So it's a little mixed right now. I think kind of in the middle, but there's a lot of appealing things here. Very solid cap situation. They have a pretty high draft pick. They have a quarterback with a lot of upside in Caleb Williams. Even though he struggled a little bit this year, he has a ton of upside, has that big playability, a guy that some coaches probably want to work with. The negatives, you question ownership. The McCaskies, they haven't done a great job, and I'm from Chicago. Everything I hear is just such negative things about McCaskey. And now you have Kevin Warren in there, who seems to be surprisingly, running things. How much does he control right now? His background really isn't team, staff, building X's and O's. It's not that, but he seems to be in a lot of control with that, pulling a lot of strings. Their GM Ryan Poles is kind of sitting there listening to him. Warren's kind of controlling him. So is there too many people pulling strings? Is it a weird situation? It seems odd right now based on the chatter around here. And the division is very tough. I think it's more a factor for their top target, Ben Johnson, the Lions being in there, but that division's super tough. And the same thing, maybe we got like Ben Johnson. The offensive line needs to be completely rebuilt. I like Darnell Wright. I was high on him. I think he'd be really good, minus him. But that is so tough to build an offensive line, and you have to get a the right coach and you have to get the right pieces. It takes a lot of time. We see it take so much time for any organization need to do that, except for the Chiefs. Somehow they turned it around pretty quick, but they got some elite players all at the right time through free agency and the draft. But kind of getting off topic here. But yeah, that's the thing with the Bears, though. You circle back to the positives. It's upside. It's cap space. It's draft pick. But let's to the comparable teams, the comparable openings. Patriots and Raiders. They both have more cap space. The both of them right now, the Patriots at the top, the Raiders have the best in the future. They both have a better draft pick, maybe a better draft situation, a little bit better. The knock on the Raiders is they don't have a quarterback. Some coaches want to pick their quarterback. The question is, do they really want to work with Caleb Williams? Some may not. So interesting job, kind of in the middle there for me. There's probably going to be some coaches that absolutely love it. They want to be there, and some just like, no. They obviously want Ben Johnson. That's kind of what they need. Because number one, they finally need a quarterback to work. They need Caleb Williams to work. And his big flaw, if you look at the top, is for him not getting the ball out nearly quick enough. And Ben Johnson, somebody that can fix that. The question that's why it becomes interesting. I did the Bears a little bit different here. And we'll talk about that. Who makes sense? Question for Ben Johnson's sake and for the Bears' sake. Look at what Ben Johnson had with the Lions. What was that offense built off of? Elite offensive line, number one, and a quarterback that quickly gets the ball out, like a smart guy in golf that just sees everything and knows where to go with the ball. The Bears right now are the complete opposite of that at the offense line position and the quarterback position. So is Ben Johnson going to be going, that might be too difficult? Are the Bears going to be going, it's not even near the same situation. We need to build this thing up first. So is this going to work out? That's the big question, but they feel desperate, it feels like, for Ben Johnson right now to make Caleb Williams work. And a lot of teams are. A lot of teams have Ben Johnson at the top. Prediction, like I said, this is the toughest team to predict. It's like throwing darts at any of the interviewed guys right now. This is probably a team I'm going to change my mind on, but I think they like Kingsbury. They're the team I think likes him the most. He did a great job with the Commanders this offseason, and then this year. He did very solid at first with the Cardinals and making Kyler Murray look like an MVP candidate, and it fell apart. But he's worked with Caleb Williams, so they might just be desperate if they miss on Ben Johnson to get a Caleb Williams type guy, a guy that, he fits. It fits. Caleb Williams type of offense, a system that needs to be run. Cliff Kingsbury, it fits. It makes some sense there. Does he want to leave? You hear some quotes of Kingsbury like he may not want to leave Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, but he does want a coaching job. So a little all over the place. Next guest, we'll go Ben Johnson because I know he's their number one, and they're probably honestly deep down I think they're going to end up with somebody random. It's kind of what happens with them. But let's say the Patriots choose Vrabel. They very well, we talked about, they could choose Ben Johnson. Let's say they choose Vrabel, and I really was feeling Pete Carroll for the Raiders, and then like I said, right before recording this, it came out that they like him. They're actually going to interview him. So I'm like, I'm on the right track there. What if the Raiders are just so desperate to get a proven guy, enough messing around with and they just choose Pete Carroll over Ben Johnson, and that kind of leaves a battle for the Bears and Jags for Ben Johnson. It becomes very much realistic, and then it's a big market team. Do they pay up finally? Do they just give Ben Johnson the money? So we'll put him next guest, but the Bears are a wild team right now when it comes to this process. Who makes sense? So I actually had a tier for the other teams, if you remember, who else they like besides who they want. You can put a long list of guys there. I know they really like Mike Vrabel. Maybe they like Brian Flores. How are those guys, the old school guys, going to work with Caleb Williams? Though? That's kind of my question. And they had a defensive coach, so going to Florida. I don't know. But who makes sense to me? I like Todd Monken a lot. I like Liam Cohen a lot. These guys specifically worked well with quarterbacks. I like that both of them have recent college experience, because Caleb Williams is a college star. You kind of need to find a little bit of both. We can't run a strict pro style offense like the old school, just NFL offense. We got to get Caleb Williams some of his flavor in there. So both these guys, one working with Georgia, Monken, one working with Kentucky, doing great job there. Monken goes over to the Ravens. Fantastic job. Lamar Jackson is elevated. That team is elevated. There's a lot of good plays. You saw a big boost in the play designs once they got Monken. That's what the Bears need. That is exactly what the Bears need. And then having a quarterback that can move, make the wild plays, that can escape pressure. You look at Lamar Jackson. Some of those plays last forever because he improvises. Kind of Caleb Williams. Liam Cohen, what he's done with Baker Mayfield, some similarities there and how he's worked with quarterbacks. He made Will Levis look good, the experience he has. These guys, I actually would argue, even though Ben Johnson's that big-time guy, these guys might make more sense for the Chicago Bears. The only thing, I think Todd Monken, based on what I just explained, makes a little bit more sense. Only thing with him is sometimes I look at him, hear him talk, and smart guy. It's just, I don't know. You kind of get the vibes like, is this guy a head coach? Is he a leader? It's kind of like the thoughts you had at Eberflus. Like, it kind of felt like, yeah, that guy's a good defensive coach, but it kind of felt funny. I don't know. It just didn't feel right with him. And I think Monken's way better than Eberflus, but part of me like thinks that. So that's kind of the only flaw there. Yeah, Liam Cohen, could he be like that Kevin O'Connell, the next Kevin O'Connell? So those guys actually make a lot more sense. I haven't heard much about Cohen for them. Monken, I've heard a bit. And then Brady, Joe Brady could make some sense as well. I think these guys could be better leaders, though. But an interesting team. It's going to be a mix of opinions. And then, yeah, do they want Ben Johnson? Or should they? I know they do. Should they want Ben Johnson as much as they do? Does Ben Johnson want them as much as some people think? Who's the most appealing spot for him? Is it about the money? Who dishes it out? Is it about the landing spot? Does Brady sway him? Interesting. Very interesting stuff here. I love this. This is the most entertaining coaching situation in the offseason because the candidates are pretty big time. A lot of proven guys. You know, Ben Johnson isn't fully proven obviously as a head coach yet, but a lot of the old school guys that are very good. But the big market organizations like the Chicago Bears, like the Patriots, like the Raiders, like the Jets, who we'll talk about, but team I'm very curious about here, the Chicago Bears. To the Jets. This is a team I feel pretty good about my couple predictions here. I'm narrowing it down to a couple guys, I should say. It's a decent to say. It's kind of in the Bears range for me. They're a lot different than the Bears, though. It's a pretty decent job. I mean, the Jets roster is good. It is a good roster, right? I mean, they got the offensive line needs to stay healthier. They need to tweak that a little bit. They have, led by Garrett Wilson. Those weapons, the running back duo they have. The defense is loaded with talent, absolutely loaded with talent. Some young guys throughout the roster that are studs, some veteran guys. That is a talented roster. Like, you're coming in there expecting to win right now, and that brings pressure, but it makes things easier to win right now. They are a pretty high draft pick for a team that's pretty good. Love that. So they don't have a long list of positives, but pretty good. I mean, talented roster is a big one. And then you question the ownership. There's been a lot of questionable talk and moves going on there. A lot of people doubting, the leadership of the New York Jets. And they do have a need at quarterback at a rough time, kind of. Like, you have such a talented roster. And the good thing is you're a quarterback away. But when you're like that, you want to get a quarterback right now. This offseason doesn't look that great for quarterbacks right now. But it's just one offseason, I suppose. I think they want Aaron Glenn. This is one of those teams that, they didn't even interview Ben Johnson. Maybe it's because he doesn't want them. They got a pretty talented roster. I think they want to go with more of the leader of men type guys that are a little more proven to be a head coach, perhaps. That could be it as well. Aaron Glenn is who they want. I know they like Mike Vrabel. They jumped on that right away. They didn't want the Patriots to get him back, but unfortunately for the Jets, they might want Aaron Glenn a little bit more. But it sounds like Vrabel's going to go to the Patriots, or at least we think, kind of close to, it's a little more than 50-50. It's probably going to be Vrabel. Matt Nagy. I heard Nagy's name thrown out there a long time ago for the Jets, so that's a little sneaky right there. I think it could be Matt Nagy. I mean, he's done good. He's learned from the best, coached the best, and Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. He went to the Bears. He had Trubisky as his quarterback. Did he even get to pick him? Maybe deserves another shot. And Spagnuolo is a guy that can lead this great defense to even more, a higher, ceiling here. So, and that guy did it. I mean, he's done so. Two Chiefs guys here. That guy's done such a good job with the Chiefs, helped them win Super Bowls. So, my prediction is going to be Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn, to me, we'll talk about the Saints here in a second, but Aaron Glenn, to me, the whole time was Saints or Jets, and it's still, he's going to end up on the Saints or Jets, but I'm kind of leaning more of the Jets. He was drafted by the Jets. This guy's a very good leader, what they're looking for. He's a good defensive coach. They have very solid defensive talent. It's going to be appealing. There's going to be agreement on both sides, interest on both sides to pair these two together, and the defense is a big part of it. But next guest, Matt Nagy. I heard his name a long time ago for the Jets. If they don't get Glenn, I'd watch out for him, but of course it could be Spagnuolo as well. But I'm really feeling Aaron Glenn for the Jets. I was feeling Nagy for a bit, but really feeling Aaron Glenn for the Jets right now. So unlike the last team we talked about, the Jets, you kind of can narrow it down a little bit, it seems, even though they are interviewing quite a bit, and maybe ends up being a name that's not on here, but feeling Glenn there, who's going to be deciding between the Jets or the Saints, and the Jets seem to be more appealing right now. And that leaves us with the Saints. Unfortunately, it's an average to probably below average coaching job just because the situation, they're kind of in no man's land where it's like they have some pieces that are pretty good veterans, so you want to add on top of that to win now, but they have terrible cap situation. You can't do that right now. They have a bad quarterback situation. Carr won't take a pay cut. They need a quarterback in a bad year to need a quarterback. They're a little stubborn. They want to try to stay in win now mode, but they absolutely probably need to go and rebuild. And it's going to be a lengthy rebuild, though, because the situation that they're in. So it's not the most appealing. First, you think Saints. Saints, usually a consistently pretty good team in the past. They expect greatness. Like, think of it that way. Pretty good job, but you factor in, again, just a really bad financial situation. They need a quarterback. It's a little messy, but high draft pick. They play in the NFC South, which isn't the greatest division in the world. It just always seems to come down the last couple weeks. So a team that, could come in there and or a coach could come in there and win a division early on if they're super confident. And they want Aaron Glenn. He was with the Saints for a little bit there coaching the DBs, and he went on and did great things. They would love him back. He's a good leader. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for a leader. I think they also like Joe Brady, who was also with the Saints. Kingsbury, there's only a couple teams that feel like are in on Kingsbury right now. They're one. David Shaw, if they're looking for a leader, a guy with experience, that's a guy, former Stanford coach that they I think could like. They kind of be a wild card hire right there. I'll go Joe Brady. This is a tough one because, again, to me, my firm prediction is Aaron Glenn ends up with the Jets or the Saints. I was originally saying Saints. I'm feeling the Jets right now. I think he could choose just a better situation, unless he just takes more money. If the Saints just offer more money, then he can go there. It's definitely possible. So then it was pretty tough. Joe Brady also has Saints ties, and he can help them find that quarterback in the future, and he can coach him up. But if they want more of the leader, like an Aaron Glenn, that's why it was tough. They could go with Shaw, or it could be someone else out there. Anthony Weaver could be a pretty good leader, good defensive coach from the Dolphins. Ravens background, obviously. We'll go with Joe Brady just because Aaron Glenn has the Saints ties. That's who they want. Joe Brady has the Saints ties there. But this is probably, very, very, very likely the least appealing landing spot out of the bunch there. But this is the most interesting, most entertaining coaching offseason that I can remember, again, because the names, the candidates, but the teams. These are big market, big name teams, huge fan bases, lots of money involved, teams that can throw out the cash, and teams that expect to be a lot better than where they are right now because of past success and because how big the organizations are. So these are my takes right now. I'm constantly talking on Twitter, updating predictions, giving my latest thoughts, talking about rumors. This is early right now, so with some of these predictions we may have to update. There may be more popping up. We have you covered with everything playoffs and everything offseason, NFL draft, free agency, trades, and of course the game, the weekly playoff matchups, everything like that, the picks, and more. So join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.